Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Muhyadin. I'm from Somalia. If I go back and give you some brief history of Somali maritime and fishing before the Civil War, more than 70% of the Somali population was dependent on livestock because of nomadic environment. Around 25% also depends on farming. So around 5% were fishing community. Because most of the Somali people, they believe if they have meat and milk, they don't need fish. That's what was the perception of the Somali people before the Civil War. Fortunately, the Somali government in 1985 developed a new strategy to adopt a fishing system in Somalia, and they started to make a fishing day. Every Monday became a day that there was no meat at all in Somalia except the fish. And then they established and built a new fishing market in the main cities. And finally, they added to Thursday. Then many communities was shifted from livestock to fishing. At the same time, when droughts happen, the government, they bring rural people to establish a fishing community in the coastal area. So adopting of fishing behavior was increasing in Somalia. And at the same time, there was a very strong military navy who have the capacity to protect maritime territory of Somalia. So the people who was enjoying peace and fishing business was increasing before the Civil War. Unfortunately, when the Civil War started in Somalia in 1991, everything was collapsed. And the Somali Navy, who used to protect Somali seawater, was disappeared, like other institutions in the country. And that was a time when we have experienced a new phenomenon of piracy, terrorism, dumping toxic waste, all these problems. Because the authority who used to protect it was disappearing. And the reason that was attracted by companies who are coming from some other countries and dumping toxic waste in Somalia, piracy, fishing, illegal fishing, all was because of the strategic location and lack of central government. That was the main reason is who attracted them, all these criminals. Somalia has the longest coast of Africa, and the Somali government, after the Civil War, they can't afford to protect all this coast, and that was also another problem. In 2013, we developed a new maritime security in Somalia in order to exploit our maritime resource and maintain the security of our coast. But there were threats and risks that we faced and experienced. Illegal fishing, illegal immigrant, people smuggling, I can't say drug, but dumping toxic material, arms smuggling, and piracy. Illegal fishing, I think most of you know that not only in Somalia, there are a lot of illegal fishing or unidentified vessels who are fishing illegally in many coasts. So we have also experienced something like that. And that was the main cause of the piracy in Somalia. Many illegal fishing were fishing in Somali seawater, and finally they very close to the community fishing in the coastal area. There were many times fighting between them. the fishing community sometimes they get problem, and the vessels who are owned by strong big companies, they have sometimes cannons, they have sometimes hot water. They use different ways to fight to the local community. And finally, they organize themselves to fight against this. That was the first time that the community started to get armed and fight against illegal fishing. By fighting against illegal fishing, then it was turned into hijacking some of the fishes, some of the vessels, and asking them fine. But it was ransom, because there was no government to have a right to fine them. The first time it was happening in northeastern part of Somalia, where Indian Ocean and Gulf of Aden meets, or the real Horn, the Horn. That community, they started to have some people who used to be Coast Guard or Army, and then they start fighting, and they sometimes they hijack fish vessels, and they get ransom. When they make money from that, there was a new idea. Say, okay, why we don't hijack all these illegal vessels? So they sometimes they don't know which vessel has a right to pass through the water, because there is a route, and which one is fishing or doing illegal fishing. That's the way they start, and then finally it became a business. And some companies who are in other countries also was trained to train them, to invest them, to give them information, and sometimes they share information with the piracy, because they will tell them the ship is coming from Mombasa or from Dubai or from somewhere who is crossing that area and that area. They give them also the information. So that's the way it was started. Finally, international community was supporting Somalia to eradicate piracy in Somalia. And there was a contact group which was established by the United Nations. There was 5 contact groups. Piracy was stopped finally in 2015. Although it's still, they can come back easily, but we don't have any problem of piracy since 2015. But sometimes it happened 2 times in somewhere in the Horn. We don't have at this time piracy problem, but anytime it can come back, because still illegal fishing is going on. Because when we eliminate piracy, again illegal fishing come back. And now the mostly of the fishing community, they have many complaints about illegal fishing for the last 2 years. The other problem was illegal immigrants. We know there are a lot of human trafficking, immigrants coming from Africa to going to Europe. Mostly they go through Yemen and then maybe to Saudi Arabia or Middle East or Europe. They come from Somalia, Ethiopia, Kenya, many countries in East Africa. Some people, they have boats, they have business in that area, and they make money for that business, illegal immigrants. The authority of Puntland was attempted to stop, and sometimes they fight against them. They put prison, they took the vessels, but they moved it from location to location. They go to the remote area, and they took these people from the city to the remote area, and they took from that to cross Gulf of Aden to Yemen, and then Yemen to other countries. Sometimes they stop Ethiopians who are coming from Ethiopia, but the problem is we have a long border with Ethiopia. So if they know this area, there is a police in the area, then they go other area. So even the government was difficult to stop that people coming from other part of the region. People smuggling also another problem, same like that. There are some companies, I think it's a company because they have a relation and network in Somalia, Ethiopia, Sudan, up to Libya, Yemen. So that network is an organization who have relation with other networks, and they work how they can do that business to smuggle the people from one country to another country. Drug smuggling is not common, but it was happening somewhere in the 90s when there was a warlords, and the warlords were using a Kismayo Borty to bring drug and bus to Ethiopia and Kenya to make money. I think it was happening sometimes in the middle of the 90s. Dumping toxic. This is one of the worst events that happened in Somalia. Many companies were started in 1992 and 1993. The Somali Authority in northeastern part, which now call it Puntland, they write complaints to the United Nations and some European countries to ask them to stop what their companies are doing. Unfortunately, still they didn't stop it. Sometimes even the Interpol and many other international law enforcement agencies, they try to find some companies who are doing this, not only Somalia, but even at other countries like Nigeria and the west coast of Africa. It still didn't happen, and it still is going on. Although sometimes when there was a piracy, the illegal dumping of tax was reduced at that time. But now, when we stopped piracy, while illegal fishing is come back, at the same time, other companies who are dumping tax was also, they can come back easily. Army smuggling. Army smuggling also is another problem. And this is used by terrorist groups. It's used by some companies as a commercial. It's used by some governments. So army smuggling was something common even before the Civil War in that area. The Gulf of Aden, the Horn of Africa. So that area, it was some groups used to smuggle armies from country to country, especially when there was a war in Yemen in the 70s and 80s, and when there was a war in Somalia and other parts of that region. So it's something common, but still it's going in that business. But now the problem is sometimes it's used by terrorist groups who can bring another casualties, which is more dangerous than how it used to be before. Piracy. Piracy was a new phenomenon of Somalia after the Civil War, because we don't even hear some people, they took army and go to the sea before the Civil War. But when there was no Somali Navy or Somali coast to protect Somali seawater, at the same time, some foreign companies, they took advantage from that, and the piracy was started and became a booming business. And finally, they have contact with other foreign companies who was working with them. But fortunately, it was reduced and stopped. But it can come back anytime soon, because when illegal fishing come back, and there are many complaints from fishing community, sometimes they can say, okay, again, while there is no some people or a community or authority who protect illegal fishing, why we don't stop it? So that means they can get a chance to come back again. But the main solution of piracy or other crimes on the sea, whether it's smuggling of the army, drugs, immigrants, the only solution or the best solution is to rebuild again National Coast Guard of Somalia, because now already it was established. Unfortunately, the Chief Admiral Mohammed Sheikh Madey, he used to be the commander of Somali Navy in Berbera. He has a very good experience with this business he knows well. So rebuilding of a national coast guard of Somalia is the best solution of eliminating or reducing crime on the sea in Somali seawater or the region. The second solution will be the collaboration of IORA. Establishing of IORA was really it was a good idea, and it can be helpful to the whole region. So the collaboration between member states of IORA is also can help to reduce piracy activities, illegal fishing, other crimes on the sea, and that will be the best solution. And that collaboration can help to give chance and opportunity for the people of the region to exploit the resource in the maritime. Thank you very much.